He said in the Quran, أولئك الذين يدعون يبتغون إلى ربهم الوسيلة أيهم أقرب يرجون رحمته ويخافون عذابه. Those whom they call upon, like Jesus, the angels, those whom they call upon themselves, they desire for themselves a means of access to their Lord. They themselves want to become closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. Which of them should be the nearest? And they, referring to Jesus, Uzair, and the angels, and their likes, they hope for His mercy and fear His torment. So ad-du'a, when we supplicate to Allah Azza wa Jal, we have to supplicate to Allah Azza wa Jal with love, with fear, and with hope. That's the du'a, the supplication that is beneficial. That is the du'a, insha'Allah ta'ala, that will be like a sword for the believer. And the Shaykh Abdul Razak, he mentions, فَهَذِي كَلِمَاتٌ عَظِيمَةٌ يَنْبَغِي عَلَى الْمُسْلِمْ أَنْ يَتَعَلَّمَهَا. Speaking about the words mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith, in this dua, he said these are some amazing words that every Muslim should learn. It's not difficult, a few lines. Every Muslim should learn so that they can utter them when they are faced with a trial or a test where they experience sorrow, anxiety, or worry. But look what the Shaykh he says. وَلْيَعْلَمْ كَذَلِكَ. He says, however, it should be understood that these words, they are only beneficial if they are correctly understood and the intent behind them is actualized and realized and a person behaves appropriately. If you make the supplication and your mind is elsewhere, or you make the dua and you're thinking about something else, or you make the dua and in reality you don't understand what you're saying, how will this really be beneficial to you? And we see many times when you say to somebody, Akhi, ittaqillah, and seek refuge from the shaitan, what you're doing or what you're saying is not something that is good. They say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, without any type of contemplation about what they're saying. And that's why the evil that comes from their mouth or their behavior might be worse than that which was before. Why? Is it because the statement, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, is not beneficial? No, that's not the case. Because if somebody said, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, contemplating upon the meaning, thinking about that which it means, and the intent behind it, then when they said those words, when they uttered those words with their tongue, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would protect them from the accursed shaitan. So that's why Shaykh Abdul Razak, he said, these words are only beneficial, إِنَّمَا تَكُونْ نَافِعَةً لَهُ إِذَا فَهِمَ مَدْلُولَهَا. These supplications, they're only beneficial if a person correctly understands what they are saying, and the intent behind the dua is realized and actualized, and a person acts appropriately. As for just mimicking the supplications and the ad'iyah, as for just mimicking the various prophetic supplications and remembrance without understanding the meanings, then he said, فَإِنَّ هَذَا قَلِيلُ التَّأْثِيرِ عَدِيمُ الْفَائِدَةِ. Then this will have little effect and no benefit. So we're not only advising ourselves, firstly and foremostly, we're not only advising our brothers and sisters to learn it, we're advising them to learn it and understand it, because as Allah Azza wa Jalla informs us in the Quran, there will be a time where a person experiences these things, experiences sadness, experiences worry, experiences anxiety. But here is a prophetic cure, a supplication that will remove all of that. And all of us are in need of this. No matter how strong you think you are, no matter how perfect you may believe you are, no matter how important you may believe you are, we're all in need of this, as will become apparent when we explain this supplication, insha'Allah ta'ala. And Shaykh Abdul Razak, he mentioned, وَإِذَا تَأَمَّلْنَا هَذَا الدُّعَاء نَجِدْ أَنَّهُ يَتَضَمَّنُ أَرْبَعَ أُصُولٍ عَظِيمَةٍ. If we were to study this dua, this supplication, the supplication which I mentioned to you at the beginning of the dars, when the Prophet ﷺ, he said, no slave is afflicted with anxiety and grief, and then says, oh Allah, I am your slave, the son of your male slave, the son of your female slave, my forehead is in your hand, your judgment upon me is assured, and whatever you have decided for me is just. I ask you by every name belonging to you, which you have named yourself with, revealed in your book, taught one of your creation, or which you have preserved in the knowledge of the unseen with you, that you make the Qur'an the spring of my heart and the light of my chest, a banisher for my grief and a reliever for my anxiety, except that Allah will replace his distress and grief with joy. So Shaykh Abdul Razak, he said, if we study this dua, this supplication, we find that it comprises 4 important fundamentals. And there is no way to achieve happiness. There is no way to achieve happiness and banish the anxiety, worry and sadness unless these 4 fundamentals are understood and implemented. What are these 4 fundamentals? Brothers and sisters, Ammal Asl al-Awwal. The first fundamental that is found in this dua, هو تحقيق العبادة لله وتمام الانكسار بين يديه. The first fundamental found in this hadith, in this dua, is worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and totally humbling oneself before Him and surrendering to Him. Because look, the slave, he acknowledges that he is part of the creation of Allah, and he recognizes that similarly his fathers and his mothers, starting from his biological father and mother, all the way to Adam and Hawa, all of his fathers and mothers, all of them are part of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look, when the Prophet ﷺ said in the supplication, Allahumma inni abduk wabnu abdik wabnu amatik, O Allah, I am your slave, the son of your male slave, the son of your female slave. فَالْكُلْ مَمَالِكْ لِلَّهِ. All of them belong to Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah is their creator, their Lord, their master, the one who controls their affairs. And there is not a moment where they are not in need of Allah Azza wa Jal. And they do not have anyone to protect them. They do not have anyone to shelter them except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, I am your slave, the son of your slave, the son of your female slave. So when a person says that, he comes down from that pedestal that he's placed himself upon. He humbles himself before Allah. No matter how great you may seem in this dunya, no matter how much people praise you, no matter how much people try to be like you, no matter what you try and present about yourself, you're a slave of Allah. Remember that, Ya Abdullah. We're all slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're nothing. We belong to Allah, and Allah is in control of us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who can benefit us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who can harm us. If you supplicate to Allah, humbling yourself before Allah Azza wa Jal, then that is the start. That is the beginning. And look, there's no difference between a rich man and a poor man. There's no difference between a black man and a white man. There's no difference between an African and an Asian, or an Arab. There's no difference between the one who is poor and the one who is rich, the one who has a nice thobe and the one who has a dirty thobe, or a thobe with holes. There's no difference between somebody who lives in the west and somebody that lives in the east. When they supplicate to Allah Azza wa Jal, they say, Allahumma inni abduk, O Allah, I'm your slave, the son of your male slave, the son of your female slave. Again, when a person says this, it causes them to humble themselves. It removes kibr, haughtiness and arrogance from the heart. Because haughtiness and arrogance is what? Rejecting the truth and looking down upon people. But when you say this, O Allah, I am your slave, the son of your male slave, the son of your female slave, lineage does not matter. Doesn't matter if you come from this tribe or that tribe. Because your father is a slave of Allah, like your mother is a slave of Allah. It doesn't matter. We all belong to Allah Azza wa Jal. However, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentions, when we say, O Allah, I am your slave, the son of your male slave, the son of your female slave, this slave is a slave who is obedient